Hello and welcome to my class, Why Does Fake Information Exist? Understanding the Motives Behind Misinformation. This class is part of the Digital Dive series. I work at the Lake Oswego Public Library. My name is April Younglove. This class was first presented on Monday, July 14th in 2025. And I'm recording it a bit later in September to share it with some more people. So if you want to see the whole series, other parts of the series, go look in the YouTube links below this, and I will link there to other presentations in this series. All right, so to start off with, I'm going to ask, who knows, just by looking at these pictures, what this story is about? I'm going to give you a second to think. If you said the urban legend that people were handing out apples with razor blades hidden in them to children on Halloween in their candy buckets, mostly in the 70s and 80s, you would be correct. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about with fake information comes down to how information is communicated and what makes it memorable. So when you think about this story, and you maybe heard it from someone else or you told it to someone else, it probably had some memorable bits to it, like an apple, a razor blade, candy. Very vivid, very easy to remember. It had an element of danger that gives it an emotional aspect that makes it easy to remember and pass on. If you didn't hear this urban legend, I want you to think of a different urban legend that maybe also has vivid imagery. First time around, whenever I taught this class, I used the urban legend that I had heard about when I was a teenager of a person waking up in a bathtub full of ice and discovering, oh no, his kidney had been stolen. But then whenever I said that urban legend, a lot of people in the class didn't know it. So I'm trying to use this one, which hopefully you do recognize. If you don't, it's probably something that you might remember even after this class, an apple with a razor blade in it in a bucket of candy, because it's so vivid. I was talking with a coworker, and the coworker said that she remembered this story, and she remembered that the adults would cut up any fruits that she got, examine any nuts that she got, and then pour the candy out and sort through it just to make sure there was nothing scary that evil people were giving to her in her candy bucket. Now, if we compare this with another thing that you may have learned, initially, again, in my first class, that was a learning experience, I talked about the parts of a cell, which it turns out not everybody learned about. So if you are an older generation than me, another thing you might have learned about in high school is this. I bet you recognize it if you went to school in sometime between the 1950 and 1980. It is diagramming a sentence. I think I was maybe on the tail end of learning about sentence diagramming. This looks very familiar to me. I can look at it, I can go, it's diagramming a sentence. But if you asked me to identify the parts, tell this as a story, explain how it works, I would be like, oh, I don't remember the details. That is lost. So why does some information, like the razor blade and the apple and the candy, people are giving that out to try and trick people, little children, into eating razor blades, why does that stick in our brains and we remember it maybe forever, whereas the details of, I don't know, diagramming a sentence are a little bit harder to remember? There are reasons. I read this book a while ago. It's the book itself stuck with me, and it explained a lot of this. I think of this frequently, more frequently than you would expect. And it's called Made to Stick by Chip Heath and Dan Heath. And whenever you want something to be memorable, It should be simple, unexpected, concrete. Credibility means like it sounds true. It sounds true. Emotional, if it has an emotional impact, ooh, that's easier to remember. And if the story is a clear linear story, beginning and end. So in the case of diagramming sentences, it's very not concrete. It is abstract. It is not simple. There's no heavy hitting emotions. It doesn't have a good story trying to get from one part to the other. It's just not as exciting. And a big thing that we have now, that I'm sure you all know the word memes. Memes are little short bits of information. They're very memorable. And memes, things that are easy to remember, are not only easier to remember, they're easier to tell other people about, and they're easier for other people to absorb. So that is part of why a meme can go boom, 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 and they say go viral, like go very fast. It's because of these principles of success. It would be great if common sense were the core of everything that we remember. If our brains as humans were like, we remember things that are patently true. When information comes to us, we analyze this information carefully and thoughtfully, and we only retain the information that's true. But in fact, common sense is not a good vector for assessing whether something's true or not. If you're trying to decide when you hear a story, is it true, is it not true? Common sense tends to value things that are emotional, subjective, that play into confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is something you already believe. So if you're like, oh yeah, I already know that's true, so this new thing that kind of sounds like that old thing, it must be true. Common sense is easier to apply to things that are simple rather than things that are complex. And unfortunately, when you use common sense, it's limited only to what you know. So if you haven't heard that idea before, it's harder to apply common sense to it. Because we all sort of think, I do it all the time, that if I hear an idea, I'll be like, psh, that's not true, because of common sense. But the things that I'm using as a way to evaluate common sense, unfortunately, it's not super effective. I wish it were. So now that we know information that is super memorable is more likely to be imparted whether it's true or not, and that we are only moderately good at telling whether it's true or not just by kind of hearing it and guessing, let's dig into the kinds of fake information that you might come across. So Clara Wardle wrote a piece called Information Disorder that is commonly cited by everybody from the Pentagon all the way down to bloggers as setting up kind of a framework for thinking about kinds of fake information. So she identifies misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. There's not going to be a test. You don't have to remember this. And in fact, this is a little bit like diagramming sentences. So if you don't get the details, that's okay. But I just want you to kind of understand the framework before we go dig in deeper so that you can kind of see what's happening and how that false information might be getting to you. Misinformation is information that is patently false, but it's not necessarily intended to mislead you. Disinformation is information that was created on purpose to mislead you. And malinformation is a little bit different. Malinformation is information that was not created to be shared or to be public, and that is shared with bad intent. And we've got all these kinds of things out here trying to get to us in our current information ecosystem. So a little bit more about misinformation. And misinformation, again, is when something that's untrue, it's false, incomplete, inaccurate, or misleading, it's shared by people who don't necessarily realize that it's false or misleading. Now, misinformation has been around forever. And in fact, all kinds of fake information have been around since the beginning of time. So what we're seeing now with the proliferation of fake information, it's not new, it's always existed. It's just that because we have ways of communicating through the internet, we can just communicate fake information so fast, much faster than we can stop and evaluate whether it's true or not. So I'm sure you can think of an example of misinformation that you've encountered even before you went online. So your neighbor telling you some gossip that they heard. They might be telling you some misinformation. They might be telling you something that's true. They might not. And they might even be not repeating it with malicious intent. They might be just like, oh, I heard that Susie's dog died. And it could be that Susie's dog just fine, alive and barking. But they got that information, they remembered it, they repeated it, and now they're telling that misinformation to you. There's no bad intent, just something got mixed up along the way. However, when you take this into an online environment, there are some pretty wacky things that we have found out about misinformation. So if you took my prior classes, we talked about influencers. And influencers are people online that have a high degree of credibility through their presentation, their actions, their following. They aren't necessarily credible, but they seem very credible. And a lot of people listen to what they say. So influencers were surveyed, and the majority, or that's not a majority, 40% is not a majority, but it's a big chunk of influencers said that they gauge the credibility of a fact that they share on their channel, be that their podcast or their YouTube, by how popular it is, how many people like it. If a lot of people like something, a lot of people look at it, it's true, and not through verification. So it's good. We still have the majority of influencers who are not just going, hey, a lot of people say that's true, it must be true. But 40%, that's a chunk, so beware. 69% of influencers believe that they promote critical thinking despite limited fact checking. So if you overlap the 69% and the 40%, you'll notice that there's at least 20%-ish of these people that are very confident that they are promoting critical thinking despite limited fact-checking. And 62% of surveyed creators said that they don't vet the accuracy of content at all before sharing it with their viewers. So if they are telling you something that's not true, they just think it's true. They're telling you. It's the same as somebody telling you something over coffee. It might be true, might not be. You're like, interesting fact. And if it affects your life, if it's important and your health depends on it, and your friend told you something, you would probably go and check it out and find out if it's true. The same attitude should be applied to people online, no matter who they are, even if they're calling themselves doctors. They're often not doctors of what you think. Do your research, and we'll talk about that more further on into this presentation as well. So, where does malinformation come from? Some of it comes from influencers who are just saying stuff. Some of it comes from something called a content farm or a content mill. And that is a way of talking about these systems that produce as many articles as possible in a day. So there are different groups. So when you have legacy media, for instance, you have reporters chasing after a story, verifying it, fact-checking it, and then publishing it. And that could take, they could be working on one story, a single story, for a week. They could have multiple reporters working on a story, and that could take a day. If you are a person that is helping create content for a content farm or content mill, that content mill's goals is, for instance, Demand Media. This is the one I'm going to talk about. They want to create 5,000 video clips and articles a day, and they have 13,000 freelancers working for them. They're generating a huge amount of information as fast as they can. They are not prioritizing fact-checking. They are prioritizing getting information in front of you. So why did they do this? What are they writing about? What they are doing, basically, is a company like Demand Media will look at what people online are searching for, what's popular, and especially search terms where, I don't know if you've ever looked for something and you couldn't quite find what you wanted. There wasn't really the perfect answer out there. They can buy data about what people search for and don't get an answer for, and then they ask for people to write it. And a lot of times these people are freelancers who are being told to write as many articles as fast as they can, and they're given a prompt and they write the article and they publish. And then there are editors who just kind of look at it and they're like, oh, spell checked, and then they publish. Why would they do this? They're doing this because they just want the ad money. So if they can give you an answer to your question, even if it's not the right answer, you will see their ad and they will get money. So this is funny because now you move my bubble. This company, like Demand Media, they are generating as much profit as the New York Times, but creating way more content. They're just flooding you with content of questionable quality. Some of it might be good, some might not. And then the new twist that's really fun is this idea of a content farm or content mill. This model has been happening for a decade or more, but the new thing that we've added is AI. So you have a freelancer being pushed to create as many videos or articles as they can a day. How do you think AI helps them? A lot. They can just go on, write the prompt, cut, paste. Great. They can meet those demands. So if you've ever read an article online and you're like, why did somebody write this? It seems riddled with confusing information. Why would somebody even make this? That's why. Add money. And that brings us to something called AI slop. And AI slop is kind of a derogatory term for AI generated content, images, and articles that are just filling up the internet with stuff that nobody asked for. So here is an interesting quote that I found while I was researching this topic. Speaking to New York Magazine, a Kenyan creator of slop images described giving ChatGPT prompts such as, write me 10 prompt pictures of Jesus which will bring high engagement on Facebook, and then feeding those created prompts directly into a text-to-image AI service such as Midjourney, and then pasting, and you get this, which is, there's nothing wrong with this picture, but it is fake. It was not created by a real artist. It was created by a Kenyan content creator working for a content mill who is trying to create as many images as possible of things that will make people who are interested in Jesus click, and then they can get ad money. So in my earlier class, if you took it before, you will remember that that AI image is pretty mild. that there are all kinds of wild AI images out there. And if you want to learn more about AI images and AI slop, I'll refer you to that class from before. So let's say you're online, you're looking for information, and now that I've told you there's these content farms out there generating poor quality information nonstop, you might be concerned about wanting to know whether what you're looking at is fake or not. And I am hoping that that's true. So here is a website called medicaloutline.com, and we can see it features a variety of health topics. And on the surface, you know, there's sort of some things that we've been taught in the past, maybe, about how to tell if something is real or not real. And a lot of those red flags, such as does it look legitimate? It's using pretty medical language here. Medicaloutline.com sounds. It doesn't give me any information. It doesn't sound outrageously bad on the surface of it. It's not like give me all your money 00xp.com, something that you would go, hey, that URL over here, I'm talking about this URL over here. It's not necessarily that suspicious. The only suspicious thing I see about it is that it is a .com. I would think that medical information would come from a service that has a .edu, meaning it's an educational place, or .org, meaning it's an organization. A hospital typically should be a .org. College should be a .edu. But hey, sometimes people buy .com because it's more familiar. So it's not too suspicious. Medical and health articles. We're looking here, articles, health, diet, birth control, parenting, contact us, about us, privacy, policy, facts. One thing I see here is these are very specific topics. Who do they seem to be targeting? What types of people might be interested in diet, birth control, and parenting? Yeah, it does seem like they are trying to target women to read these rather than just anybody with a body. They are topics that are concerning one kind of person. So here are some things that we're going to look at. Short general articles with little to no citation, that is a red flag. A lot of ads, that's a red flag. We don't see any ads here, so it's not, you're like, it might be all right. Links to other websites. So when they're linking to lots of other websites, but not to their own site, to sites that are questionable. I should say links to other questionable websites. That's where you're like, You want to make sure that they are linking to factual information. It's good whenever they cite their sources, bad whenever they're just linking to ads. And if it kind of just looks like information that they copied from somewhere else, there is a possibility that they went to a legitimate source of medical information, cut and pasted it, and just put it in there. And if I've been talking long enough, you may have noticed this. What is the price of ashwagandha? That's their trending topic. Let me see if I remember if the next frame is what I want or not. No, we'll talk a little bit more about this. So let's see. Let me go and see this website. This is a source that I read more about this. If you're really interested in learning how content farms work, you can click on that link in the presentation later and learn more. But one of the things that we would see in this is these are the authors, Hema, Agnes, Brilla, Hema, and if we clicked on these, we would find out that Hema and Agnes And Brilla, they don't really have any credentials really explaining why that they should be writing these articles. And the articles are very short. They don't have a lot of information in them. Because if we dig into all of their ads, into their site, and we go to their FAQ and their privacy policies, we discover it's all about ashwagandha. That's the reason that this content farm exists. So disinformation is deliberate. Misinformation is a mistake. Disinformation is deliberate. Content farm quality kind of lives somewhere in that hazy middle, where they're not necessarily trying to hurt you with bad information. They're just going as fast as they can, and they don't care if it's true or not true. So misinformation is a mistake. We're going to talk a little bit more now about deliberate disinformation and why that would exist. Because if you, like me, are a genuine person who cares about things, you're like, why would you spread deliberate misinformation? That is, I'm a librarian. That's the opposite of what I want to do. So I had to really research to think about why that anybody would want to do this. Here is a source down here from a guide from Princeton. If you want to dig in, I'll include that later too, and you can read more about where I learned about where disinformation comes from. I'm going to kind of start off with maybe least potentially bad motives to like the worst bad motives. So we're going to start off with satire or parody. This is a type of disinformation that, again, nothing is new, has been around for a while. If you read The Onion, you know about satire or parody articles. They kind of look like news articles, but they aren't real. Typically, the intent of these is to be funny. So you're like, oh, you read an Onion article, it's funny, it's silly. It's not intending to harm someone. However, unintentionally, it can be used to spread rumors or conspiracy theories. And just because, if you remember back to the beginning of the presentation, we talked to make it stick. Satire or parody is unfortunately very sticky. It's memorable. It's emotional. It's unexpected. It's all of those things that make something shareable. So actually, satire is very shareable and gets more eyes maybe than it even deserves. And because it's shareable, it can be shared in the beginning on a website that's clearly marked as parody. Then it goes to your Facebook friend. Your Facebook friend takes a screenshot. Then they share it on Twitter/X. Suddenly, nobody knows where this information came from, and then they might believe that it's real. So here is a real story where the Senate Minority Leader was fooled by a report in the military version of The Onion. They called the Duffel blog, and the Duffel blog had a tongue-in-cheek article, and unfortunately, it was briefly believed to be true by people who are actually making our laws. So it can be a funny gotcha, or it could actually be a little bit dangerous. And one more note here, there is sometimes there are people with a darker intent because there might be platforms that don't allow, they flag content that is wrong and or fake, and they throw it off. But if they say, oh no, it's a parody, they can stay on the platform and not be taken off. So there are occasionally really weird reasons that people who want to trick people on purpose use parody to try and avoid being censored and to explicitly trick people that they want to trick. Another kind of disinformation. The motivation, this is a little bit, so we're kind of moving from, hey, most of the people who create parody, their intention is to get laughs. Now the intention is to get clicks. And why do people want clicks? because the more clicks you get, the more ad money you get. So you may have seen a false connection. This is a type false connection, and it's I'm sure you've seen it, I've seen it, but you might just not have known why it existed or what was going on here. So you've got some pretty catchy headlines usually. 70-year-old runner shatters marathon world record. Nutritionist reveals secret to losing weight and staying healthy. Oh yeah, those sound like really interesting headlines. They're catchy, but what happens? You click on it, it takes you to some site. This one is like, take our miracle cure drug to cure heart disease. Here's one sentence about a runner. Has nothing to do with this. It's actually an ad. Or this nutritionalist is actually a person who works for their diet pill company, and the diet pills are not reviewed by the FDA, and they're coming from China, and maybe that's not what you want. And also, this is kind of it looks legit. It looks kind of like how news articles are. It's got that header, it's got the headline, but it's lacking some information. It's not really saying where it's coming from. This kind of disinformation can be harmless or annoying, but over time, one of the problems with this kind of false connection advertising is that people become tired of seeing this, and at some point, you're just like, even if it's a real article, you're like, I don't know, and you just stop believing that anything's real. Which is actually kind of a problem, because we need to be able to figure out how to differentiate real and fake things. And if you can't, it's easier to just, it's harder to get real information out, and it's easier to get fake information out if nobody can tell the difference. One of the motivations might be just to increase confusion and division. Their motivations are just to get clicks and ads, but it might also be that they want you to click on a certain thing for political purpose, so that they can say that their site was clicked a gajillion times and they've got your attention. Now that they've got your attention, can they tell you all about their favorite candidate or pet cause? These types of things over here are known as clickbait. Clickbait is a term. It means it gets your attention, you click it, it's not what it is. So bait and switch, false connection. Another type of disinformation is misleading content. So, it kind of looks true, but it's not true. Usually they have out of context quotes, cropped photos, or statistics presented in a misleading way. So an example of an out of context quote might be somebody making a joke. That joke gets pasted under their face, and they say, so let's say there's a CEO and he's like petting a puppy, and he's being sarcastic. He's like, oh, you know me, I hate little puppies. He's being sarcastic. And then the next thing you know, they have a picture of him, not him petting the puppy, but him making a face like this when he was maybe thinking real hard. And then the quote, CEO hates puppies. Right? So that's an out of context quote. That's happening a lot now. It's very easy for people to do, because you can very easily search and find an image, search and find a quote, cut, paste, put them together, put it on the internet, and share with all your friends. It's super easy, super fast. And also, since we know that sticky information is information that causes an emotional reaction, if that reaction is like, hey, he hates puppies, that's an emotional reaction. They're getting it from you by doing the out of context quote, and that means their content will be shared more, and they win. So crop photos, for instance, might be a photo that looks perfectly like you think you understand what you're looking at, but they cut part of it out, so actually you're literally not getting the full picture. And statistics have been presented inaccurately since the beginning of time. But because we can share information so much more quickly, and we can, anybody can create a fun looking graph. I can create a graph on anything I want and it looks professional in just about 5 minutes. It's harder to tell who's creating these graphs and how accurate they are, or they could even be subtly wrong, not even totally wrong. So in this example, this is the same information, they just presented it differently to make it look like a totally different conclusion than what the data says has been reached. So here, what does it look like? China. Whoa, looks like China is spending a lot on their military, so much on their military. But actually, if it's correctly adjusted and displayed correctly, we see that, yeah, they spend a lot, but in fact, the US spends much more. This is distorted because they have created a separate y-axis. Okay. False or manipulated content. Trying to move my face around, sorry. This overlaps a little bit with the last one. It's to get attention by sharing real content with the wrong context. So it's a little bit like taking a quote out of context, but instead of taking a quote out of context, we're taking the photo out of context or some other thing. So here we see this post on X. Recorded high temperatures have led to the temporary post-Maria plastic traffic lights melting in Catano, Puerto Rico. Wow. So there's a current event that this post is about. It's July 2023. We've just had this major real event in Puerto Rico where there's high temperatures. But this photo is not from Puerto Rico, and it's not even from the same year. This photo was taken from a traffic light accident. So in Italy, there was a scooter fire that caused other things to catch fire, and it was a big accident, and it melted a traffic light. But instead of pairing that with the correct information, they're talking about the high temperatures, and they're like, hey, wouldn't it get people's attention if we put this dramatic picture with it? Can you imagine the temperatures being so high that it melted that? And you can imagine it, but it's not true. Here's another example over here on the right. Why you shouldn't swim after a hurricane. So this picture was taken in Puerto Rico, again. Same kind of example. After Hurricane Irene ravaged the island. Yes, that's a shark swimming down the street next to a car, and this is exactly why authorities in New York City are warning people not to go swimming in floodwaters after a hurricane. Ooh. Sharks go where fish go, and fish go where water goes, and if that water and those subsequent fish happen to be right outside your front door, then guess where the freaking sharks are gonna be? Okay, that sounds pretty scary. It sounds like this is targeted at people in New York City, telling them not to go swimming. Based on this image that they say was taken in Puerto Rico shortly after a hurricane. It was not. This is just straight up photoshopped. So you see this picture of this mirror here? Yeah, that just is popped in. This picture and this picture. This is just this is good old-fashioned Photoshop. There's a shark swimming in the water. They cut this part of the image out. They filled it with a picture of a water and a shark, and now it looks like this car is driving right next to the shark. It was originally actually intended to be a joke, but now it keeps showing up with posts. Multiple times it's showed up with posts that are claiming that it is about a real event, but it's not. So More disinformation. There is so much information. And it's okay. Don't get too overwhelmed. This is just about raising your awareness that people are out here doing these kinds of things. My most important goal is to get you to stop and pause, and if it seems in any way like it's giving you red flags, to maybe not share it, or to check and find out if it's real before you hit that share button. So this type of disinformation is called imposter content. Again, all about those clicks, selling those products, and now, or also about fooling people by pretending to be a trusted source. So let's see some of the things you can look for when you're trying to figure out if what you're looking at is actually from the news site that you think it's from. Basically, it will mimic exactly something that looks true. It may even use graphics from a real news site, so they might go to a local Fox News or CNN or something that's, in this case, they're copying BBC. This format, this color red, this image, everything about this looks just like a BBC ad, okay? Or except that it is not from the BBC at all. And the danger here is that it's telling people the general election is to be held over 2 days. And they're saying, if we go down here, the Labor, Liberal Democrat, and Green Party supporters should vote on Thursday, June 8th, as usual. Conservative and UKIP supporters should now vote on Friday. Please be aware that if you vote on for the wrong party on the wrong day, your vote will not count. So they've made it look like it's from the BBC. It's not, and it's giving information that is not only incorrect, but in fact harmful, because it's telling people to show up on the wrong day, and so their votes won't count. But it looks very credible, and that's very difficult because it used to be harder to fake looking exactly like the real thing. Now it's very easy for people to cut and paste and make things look very real. So what you could do, if you saw this come across your Facebook feed, it looks real, everything, but if there's any red flag about it, you're like, wait, is that true? You want to cut and paste it into a search engine, see what comes up. Go to the original website. So you're like, the BBC said that. Okay, let's open up a new browser. Let's go to the BBC and see if I can find this information. Another place you could look, if you're like, is this true? You can go to somewhere like Media Bias Fact Check or Snopes. Again, I will provide those links. And those are places where that try to collect bad information like this and to tag it and let you know, hey, that's a big fake that's going on right now. So you have a couple options when you see imposter content. Go to the organization's real website, try to find it, try and cut and paste this, see who else is reporting on it. If it's widely reported by many reliable news outlets, that's a good sign. If the only thing that shows up is this one scam thing, it's probably not true. And again, you can just try and see if it's been reported on a website that collects false information. And then there's information that is just completely and utterly made up. It's totally fake. It's designed to harm. It's designed to manipulate public opinion. And there are a number of people who want to do this. A lot of times their motivations are political. That can include not just people within a country, but other countries trying to influence each other. Countries have always tried to influence one another. However, the game has changed because it's easier to get their information that maybe is completely fake in front of people's eyeballs in another country through the internet. So keep in mind when you see content, you don't know, is it coming from bad actors overseas, here, where? A lot of people trying to do a lot of things, and they will lie to try and get you to believe that it's true, to get you to do what they want you to do. So here we have a completely fabricated YouTube channel. This channel created many videos, not just one, and it looked legitimate. Look at that, they got a stamp, property of U.S. military today. They had 152,000 subscribers before it was removed, after it was identified as fake. The U.S. military actually reported it to YouTube and said, hey, there is a site that is making actual fake content about our military and sending it around and saying that it's true, and it's not. And you know what? The world is complicated enough that I don't know who is creating this, and they weren't sure who was creating it and for what purpose, but we know that it wasn't true. Unfortunately, because it was very realistic, it took a long time to research and figure out what was going on and prove that it wasn't true, but then it was taken down. And here we have that last piece of the Venn diagram, which is malinformation. This one is kind of weird, because it's kind of not fake information in the terms of being fake, but it is fake information in terms of it's not information that needs to be out there. So it typically targets an individual, a company, or a group. It's trying to attack or discredit or embarrass them. The tactics are sometimes very personal. So for instance, there's revenge porn. That's like a naked picture maybe somebody used to date, and then that was meant to be private, but then to embarrass them, the person who in the relationship is not happy anymore, makes that public. Data leaks, selectively edited videos, and here we have an actual story which you may or may not remember about how a data leak took all of the people who were using this website to try and cheat on their spouses and made it public. And then this is an interesting sort of kind of malinformation that we're experiencing now that is the most dangerous, which is called doxing. And doxing is where people will take a person's home address, email, phone, etc., put it up, and then encourage many of their followers to try and basically go get them. And go get them can mean anything from send them a mean email to ... shoot them with a gun. And it's very so think about where your information is coming from. Is it even information that it's ethical to be sharing or ethical to view and use? And doxing, the laws are catching up. We're starting to get laws that are outlawing revenge porn. We don't yet have laws that are clearly against doxing, but it's enough of a problem that I believe we're well on our way to hopefully making it more legal. But even if it's illegal, people will do it if they can. So that's just to be aware of. That's a kind of malinformation. Oh, let's go back. So I wanted to say a little bit more about influence campaigns. I talked about how that maybe governments or political parties in your country or outside your party are impacting things, but also corporations and even individual wealthy people. And I'm going to talk about a really weird example about one wealthy person running a malinformation campaign against another, just because they have the money to do it and they can. Um, so an influence campaign is a coordinated effort to shift public opinion. And they do this by hiring firms to run bot networks to generate disinformation. So we go back to the content farm. They could hire someone to hire the kind of people who work for content farms to generate as much information as fast as possible that is untrue about someone, and to start spreading it everywhere. They can get little AI bots to start just automatically commenting anytime somebody's name comes up with hate speech. They can pay influencers to spread talking points. Influencers are very trusted, so if those influencers say something, people believe them. They can feed false or misleading news stories to media outlets. And some of the reasons they do this, to distract from their own scandals or bad press, especially a corporation, sway elections policy decisions, incite unrest, or just promote a specific agenda. So in this case, I went way down the rabbit hole when this first happened. It's fascinatingly bizarre. There is an actor. There are two actors. They were working with each other on a film, and the one actor felt that she was being sexually harassed by the other actor and started complaining. And that actor, who was the subject of those complaints, ran an influence campaign against her. So he hired a firm to spread lies everywhere about Blake Lively, and many people, including people I know, were horrified to realize that they had read information about Blake that this guy paid to put out there, and they thought it was true, and it was not true. So some of these weird campaigns include things called sock puppetry. That's a fake identity used to post or comment as if it's from different people. So an example of that might be a person who is paid to harass and discredit Blake Lively might go on Facebook, create 6 different profiles, put up pictures of just like AI generated faces of people, say, create names, make a whole account, and then with each account go on an article about Blake Lively and say the same thing, have a conversation with the 5 people that they are about how terrible Blake Lively is, and you're like, wow, a lot of people must hate Blake Lively. Look at those 5 people, and all 5 people are the same. It's a sock puppet. There's sea lioning, bad faith questioning to exhaust or derail the discussion. So no matter what the discussion is about, even if the discussion is about a film that Blake shot 3 years ago, people just are paid to go on there and say, did you know she did this terrible thing? And they do it over and over and over on every single thing that addresses Blake Lively until people are like, wow, everybody's heard about this. It's bad faith. Astroturfing is a fake grassroots campaign sponsored by an organization. So that this didn't, well, I guess it kind of does. It's where it seems like it's a movement of the people, that many different people believe something and are just of their own accord all coming to the same conclusion, but what's actually happening is somebody with big money is paying these people to appear like they are just people of the people and speaking up for the little guy, but they're not. They're being paid big money. And catfishing. This is when people create false identities used to deceive for scams, fraud, or manipulation. I'm going to talk a whole lot more about catfishing in a future presentation, all about people who want to scam you. So here's another way. This is one of my favorite silly ways to try and remember, make it stick, how that you can evaluate what kind of information you're looking at. Where did it come from? Why was it made? Is it accurate? and you want to ask currency, when was it made? Is it actually a picture from an event that happened 2 years ago being posted currently? It's not. Is it relevant? Does it relate to your topic? So if there's something about ashwagandha on a site that says it's about health, maybe it's not relevant. That could be a sign. The authority, the source of the information. If it looks good, that's a great start. If it looks good but it sounds questionable, again, we remember to double check. Accuracy, where did it come from? Can you root back to the original source of the claim? If you can't, that's what librarians are for. Quick pitch for us. We're happy to help you find the origins of a claim if you see one. And you can evaluate the tone. The more emotional it is, the more likely it is that they are trying to make something stick in your brain and make you pass it on, and that they don't care about whether it's real. It might be emotional and real, but it's kind of a flag to slow down and evaluate. And then the purpose. Why does it exist? Who made this? Why did they made it? Is it accurate? And that's my presentation. These are my sources. If you have any questions about any other information that I gave here that you can't find in the sources, I'm happy to cite everything. I love to read and research topics. And this is the whole series, the Digital Dive. AI, is it AI or is it digital? That one is already up on YouTube. This one that you just listened to, Why Does Fake Information Exist? That is the third one. And soon I will be recording the second and fourth one as well. And if you like this and you're listening to this presentation before November 10th, 2005, come on over to the Lake Oswego Adult Community Center on November 10th, and you can see an in-person presentation about scammers. And that'll be the final presentation in my Digital Dive series. I'm from Lake Oswego Public Library, from the city of Lake Oswego. You can contact me at ayounglove@lakeoswego.city. Thanks.